Hi, I'm Annie. Welcome to my YouTube channel. I post weekly web design tips that are easy to follow along. Today I'll show you how to create a GIF like this in Photoshop and a website where a cursor shaped like a candy triggered the GIF animation. For this GIF, I actually started with the logo in Illustrator. If you prefer not to work in Illustrator and want to get straight into creating the GIF, you can download my 3 images for the GIF and use the same as I have. They are linked in the caption. I used the direct selection tool to adjust the C from the logo. I had an idea on how to make this into a cute little worm. So I added a thick border and then outlined the stroke to make it into a path like this. And then I just made a rectangle above to use Pathfinder Erase Front to get this little shape, but I realized this looked like something completely different. So I decided to scratch that idea and start with a different design. And then I came up with this design with a cute little face. I used the pencil tool to draw lines on this worm. If your lines don't turn out as straight as mine, just double click on the pencil tool and drag fidelity all the way up. This makes your lines super smooth. When I was finished with the icon, I checked to see that it still works as the C in the logo. And then I created a few variations of this logo. Then I got started on the GIF. A GIF is really only a few different images that shows as frames, kind of like a video, but a frame is just a different format. The first part of this website animation is where the little worm is just gaping, so that's what I'm creating here. This is actually not a part of the moving GIF, but just a start of the website animation that is triggered when the cursor comes close to the worm, and then it actually triggers the GIF when the candy is on top of the worm. You'll get it along the way. Now this is the actual first frame of the GIF. At first I tried using the pencil tool to draw the cheeks, but it didn't really turn out the way I had envisioned, so then I decided to just use the mouth instead, which made it look so cute and that it really has something in its cheek. And then I just duplicated and mirrored it. I feel like when it's chewing, it's moving from side to side, so then the actual cheek should also bulge out a little bit when it's chewing. I duplicate my designs a lot to make sure I don't lose any progress if I decide to go back a step, because sometimes I change my mind. To make it look like the cheek is bulging out, I'm just creating a circle. Just press L to use the circle tool. And then select the body and the circles for the cheeks and use Pathfinder Unite to make it into a one shape. I use one of my duplicates to just move the mouse and the cheeks a bit to the side, and then do the same with selecting both the body and the circle and use Pathfinder Unite to make it into one shape with the mouse slightly to the side. And then I do another duplicate on the opposite cheek. So now I have one where the mouth is centered, one where the mouth is to the left, and one where the mouth is to the right. Here I have all my different frames that I will use, both for the website animation and for the frames in the GIF. For the actual GIF, I only need these 3 frames. So I start by pasting them into Photoshop as 3 different layers. When you have them as 3 different layers, open up the timeline panel. If you don't see this, just go to Window and Timeline. Click Create Frame Animation. This creates your very first frame. For this frame you only want 1 layer visible, so make sure to hide the other 2. My start frame will be the one where the worm has its mouth in the center. To add a new frame, tap the plus icon down here. For this frame, hide the first image, the one where the worm has its mouth centered, and display one of the other ones, I select the one where the mouth is to the right. In between each chew, the mouth goes back to center, so for the third frame I click the plus icon again and display only the one with the mouth centered. And then I tap the plus icon again to add the fourth and final frame where the mouth is to the left. I changed the timings to each of the frames to 0.2 seconds. And then you can click play to preview. Now all you have to do is save this as a GIF. To do that, go to File, Export, Save for Web, and use the same settings as I have here. As a part of this web design, I also had a really cool 3D looking logo. This logo I created in Adobe Firefly. So just go to firefly.adobe.com if you want to create a similar logo like I did. I usually try a few different prompts to see what I'm going for. If I find something really cool here, I can use that as a style reference, but this time I didn't really vibe with the results I got. So instead, I just uploaded the logo as a structure reference. When you do this, make sure to drag strength all the way up. This way it turns out just like your logo. And then as usual, I try all the different prompts I can think of to see what really triggers the very best result. Once I found my favorite, I just downloaded it, and then you can upload it to Wix Studio to remove the background to get a result like this. The background image for this website I created in Midjourney. I can also link this one in the caption if you want to use the exact same as mine, to make following along in this tutorial easier for you. This entire website is built on Wix Studio, and I just start by adding some animations to the logo. Go to Animation Effects, Mouse Effects, and I usually try a few to see what I like the best, but this time I went for Track and Follow Mouse. Now it's time to add the GIF and the fun animations with the worm. As you can see here, I have 3 different images. All of them are actually in the GIF format, but only one of them is an actual moving GIF. I exported all of them as GIFs to make sure there are no color differences, because a PNG can sometimes look slightly different than a GIF. But if you export a GIF with only one frame, it's not moving and it doesn't take up a lot of space. First, I just add all 3 images like this to the site. In the Wix Studio editor, you can hold Option and drag to duplicate. This ensures all 3 images are the exact same size. And then I just replace the images to the correct ones. Now we have one with a regular happy little worm, one with a gaping worm, and one with a chewing worm. I place all 3 in the same container and make sure they're all placed exactly on top of each other. I layer the worms like this, the happy little worm at the bottom, and on top of that I have the gaping worm and then the chewing worm at the very top. You can adjust this in the Layers panel in Wix Studio. I want the chewing to start when the cursor with the candy are on top of the actual worm. So I select the chewing worm, go to Animation Effects. I select Hover and Appear. Since the gaping worm is on top of the smiling worm, this is all we currently see, but as you can see, the chewing starts when the cursor hovers over the worm, which is exactly what we want. At the initial state, we want the smiling, happy little regular worm, and then when the cursor comes closer, we want the worm to start gaping as it's eager to get the candy. That's why we placed all 3 worms in a container that's slightly bigger than the worms themselves. So now select the container and then go to Animation Effects. Select Hover and then select the animated element to be the image where the worm is gaping. And then apply the same settings, so I select Appear. This means when the cursor hovers over the container, the image where the worm is gaping will start to appear. Because this just covers the smiling regular worm, we don't have to do anything about the initial image. Finally, select the entire section, scroll all the way down to cursor, and here you can select any custom cursor. I select this PNG I have of a Swedish candy. I like my candy to be big, so I drag the slider all the way up to 128 pixels. And now I have this interactive animated website built on Wix Studio.